Let's look together at Genesis 19. It begins actually rather awkwardly. It says, the two angels arrived at Sodom in the evening. And this is just an awkward place to be able to begin, right? It is one of those chapters where it kind of begins in the middle of the story. So we're left asking, who exactly are these two angels, and why are they going to Sodom? Like, what's going on there? So we kind of actually need to be able to back up a little bit to be able to get some context as to what was going on. And part of it we looked at in our Christmas series together, where back in chapter 12, it says, the Lord said to Abraham, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you, and I will make you into a great nation. And we looked, of course, at all of that in the Christmas series, but we kind of brushed past verse 4. Verse 4 says, Abraham went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. And verse 4 here gives us this little detail about Abraham's nephew Lot traveling with him. And as we keep reading, we discover that Lot's whole family went with him, bringing, of course, with them all their possessions and so forth. Jumping to chapter 3, it tells us, now Lot, who is moving about with Abraham, also had flocks and herds and tents, but the land could not support them if they stayed together, for their possessions were so great that they were not able to stay together. And as quarreling arose between Abraham's herders and Lot's, so some family drama was starting to happen between the two family groups. So Abraham says to Lot, let's not have any quarreling between you and me, or between your herders and mine, for we are close relatives. Is not the whole land before you? Let's part company. You go to the left, I'll go to the right. You go to the right, I'll go to the left. No problem. Abraham's being, of course, very, very generous here in the way he's working with this. He's not handicapping Lot in any way by demanding that he gets the best of whatever. He simply throws it out there. Like, I want to cut off any quarreling between us, so pick what you want. I'll go the other direction. That's fine. You pick. All good. I'm fine with whatever. So Lot, he looked around and he saw that the whole plain of Jordan towards Zoar was well watered like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt. And so Lot here, of course, does what many would do. He in this instance does not ask God for wisdom in this decision, and we're going to see this come to play here in a minute, right? But he doesn't ask God's wisdom in this decision at all. He doesn't take into account what might be helpful to Abraham, who's offering him this. He doesn't even take his own family into consideration in any kind of spiritual sense. No, he just does what many people do. He looks around at what he can get out of the situation. And what he saw was an area that was very like the Garden of Eden. It was lush because of all the water and so forth that was there. He saw it was overflowing in abundance like Egypt was at the time, like a super nice place to be. So Lot is like, I'll take that. Thank you very much, Abraham, right? I'll go there. Interesting to be able to know. Now, before we move on here, though, I want to make sure that we don't miss what is hopefully obvious to all of us, and that is that Lot's entire focus here in this is on the land as a value proposition, you might say. He's focused purely on the land as a value proposition. Like, there's nothing said here about his concern for his family's spiritual well-being and how this move might impact them spiritually. No conversation there. Lot instead chooses to do what sadly many people do today. They just pick up and move based on their job, their careers, money, really, and experiences, you might say. Like, what an incredibly nice place to be able to live. Let's go there, right? And so they move. And that's exactly, of course, what Lot does here. Lot chose for himself the whole plain of the Jordan and set out towards the east. The two men parted company. Abram lived in the land of Canaan, while Lot lived among the cities of the plain and pitched his tents near Sodom. And so Lot set up where exactly? He set up near Sodom, notice it says that, near Sodom. In other words, he's not living downtown, he's living in the suburbs, you might say, right? And I know it seems kind of silly to be able to point this out, but that kind of comes into something, it plays into something here in a moment, so I want to make sure we notice it. Because things kind of get dark here in a minute. And our first foreshadowing of that is actually in the next verse. It says, now the people of Sodom were wicked and were sinning greatly against the Lord. So, not good. So, again, let's be clear here with what we're looking at. Lot made his choices based off of what was best for himself financially and probably opportunity-wise there with the lushness of the land and so forth. But that put him smack in the middle of a very, very wicked place. So sure, there was wealth there and great malls, with lots of shopping opportunities and great excursions for the whole family to enjoy, but it was also a hotbed of sin. And does valuing money and experiences over God, by snuggling up to sin. And, I'll never do the sin. I'm just living here. I'm unaffected by the sin. I can be here and it doesn't really affect me. Like, does that way of thinking ever work? Does that ever work out? Well, no. So let's take a look at it, jumping to chapter 18. Chapter 18 begins this way. It says, the Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre while he was sitting at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day. Abraham looked up and saw 3 men standing nearby. When he saw them, he hurried from the entrance of his tent to meet them, and he bowed low to the ground. So God himself here shows up to Abram with 2 angels, three men. One is God, and the other is 2 angels. We see those numbers work out here in a minute, so we'll see that as this keeps following. But as it relates to Lot and Sodom, we pick up in verse 6. It says, when the men, these angels, got up to leave, they looked down towards Sodom, and Abraham walked along with them to see them on their way. So Abraham is seeing them to the door, so to speak, and they get up to go, and they're heading towards Sodom. And then it says, then the Lord said, the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great and their sin so grievous that I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know. And it's very interesting here to me to be able to note here in passing that apparently people had been praying, asking God for help here as it relates to all of the evil, sinful stuff that was happening there. Like, some people had been victimized by the people from Sodom and Gomorrah. And so God was sending these angels to be able to check all that out. So the angels, they head out, and the men turned away and they went towards Sodom. But Abraham remained there standing before the Lord. So there were 3. One stayed, that's God. The other 2, the angels, head off towards Sodom. And then Abraham approached him and said, remember the context here. Remember what's going on, the big picture, right? Lot, we're told, was living just outside of Sodom. And some angels here are now heading there at God's command, presumably to be able to bring judgment on them if things are as bad as is reported. So Abraham comes to God with a request. Abraham asks God this: Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? As in, God, there has to be some good people there. They can't all be bad, right? They can't all be bad. I mean, if there are some good people there, are you really going to wipe out the entire place, wiping out the good people along with the bad people? Like, are you going to do that? And it's a fair question, right? But Abraham doesn't stop there. He actually puts a number on it. He goes, what if there's 50 people, right? What if there's 50 righteous people in that city? Will you really sweep it all away and not spare the place for the sake of 50 righteous people? It's a great question, right? It's a great question. Whole city full of people. There has to be at least 50 people. They're the righteous people, right? Like, what do you say, God? Like, do we have a deal, right? Like, if there's 50 righteous people there, you won't wipe the place out. Deal? And God says, deal. And you know what happens when someone agrees to your deal real quick. You're like, I asked a little too, whatever. So he goes on. Wait, well, how about 45? Like, what if there's only 45? Deal. 40. What do you go with 40? God agrees to 40. He's like, 30? Will you do 30? I'll do 30. 20? Okay, I'll do 20. He's like, okay, I got probably one shot more at this. Like, 10? Will you do 10? 10. At this point, he's like, I'm pressing my luck, right? I'm pressing my luck. And surely, in this entire place, there has to be at least 10 righteous people there, right? So he stops there. So here we are towards the end of chapter 18 with all this going on. Abraham's made a deal with God as the angels head into the wicked city of Sodom, which then brings us all the way back to Genesis 19 where we begin. And these 2 angels that we began with, the 2 angels here arrived at Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gateway to the city. So this is interesting. Where is Lot living now? Apparently not outside of this sinful city, but apparently now inside of it, as he's now sitting at the gate, at the entry point of the city. So it appears he's moved from nearby to apparently he's living smack in the middle of it. So when he saw them, he got up to meet them, and he bowed down with his face to the ground. My lords, he said, please turn aside to your servant's house. You can wash your feet and spend the night, and then go on your way early in the morning. No, they answered, we're going to spend the night in Clinton Square. Like, we're going downtown, right? We want to be right in the middle of the place. That's where we're going to stay. But he insisted, no, so strongly that they did go with him and entered his house. He prepared a meal for them, baking bread without yeast, and they ate. Before they had gone to bed, all the men from every part of the city of Sodom, both young and old, they surrounded the house. This does not sound good, right? This sounds bad. Like we know that this is a very sinful city from what we've already seen said flat out, and we know the prayers that have been prayed to God concerning this town, so we know the angels were then sent to be able to check all this out, and we saw Abraham trying to bargain with God on just 10 people, righteous people being there, because Abraham wasn't confident there were 50 or 45 or 40 or 30, 20, so forth. So with all this background, we're not expecting good things. And now here we are, and the house is surrounded by all the men of the city, young men, old men. The place is surrounded. And they call out to Lot, "Where are the men who came to you tonight?" The men of the city, young and old, they all came out. They surround Lot's house as apparently someone had spread the news that some men had come into town and were staying at Lot's house. So they surround the house and they tell Lot, "Bring them out to us so that we can have sex with them." And if you're new to the Bible, it's like, what? Right? What in the world's going on here, right? This is another one of those situations in the Bible where we're like, that's in the Bible? Yeah, it's in the Bible. Yeah, here it is. Actually, this is one of those sections of the Bible that sometimes people point to when talking about homosexuality, as that's the sort of sex that's being talked about here. And the Bible does prohibit gay sex, that's true. But this here is actually a terrible, terrible passage to point to on gay sex, as what it's talking about here is rape, is what it's talking about. The men of the city, young and old, they've surrounded Lot's house and they've demanded that he bring his guests out so they as a group can forcibly have their way with them. This is terrible right here. This is a horrible, horrible situation. But as grotesque as it is to be able to read, it also makes it really clear to us the types of prayers that God was receiving concerning Sodom and Gomorrah. The picture is coming clear to us now. We now know and understand at least one of the reasons why he sent the angels there. And it explains why Abraham wasn't so confident that he'd find 50, 45, 40, 30, 20, 10. He wasn't sure. Why? Because this place is not a great place. It's not a great place. This is bad. But as bad as it gets even darker. It says Lot went out to be able to meet them, and he shut the door behind them, and he said, no, my friends, no. What? No, my friends, he says. Think with me about this for a minute. I mean, there's being friendly to your neighbors and all of that, but friends? It's actually interesting. This section of the Bible is written in Hebrew, and this is the word behind the English translation here is friends. It means literally brother. Someone born of the same mother or father. That's usually the way it's translated. Literally, and like a relative, right? A close relative, that kind of thing is the other way it's used. Literally all the other major translations of the Bible translate it that way. That's the word that's here. That's what's being used. Brother. So this is really, really bad here. Lot initially chose to be able to live near here because of how lush the area was, how much prosperity was available and so forth, probably great experiences with family, all that kind of stuff. But it was also the epicenter of a ton of sinful stuff. And yet Lot chose to move near there, only to later on move into town itself, it appears, where he has apparently gotten so close to these rapists that he refers to them as family. This is not a great situation. I mean, yes, there's talk of people wanting to reach out to sinners with the gospel. Yes, that's true, and God has indeed called us to do so. But when we play with sin, when we entertain it, placing ourselves in front of it and its practitioners and its proponents, we are placing ourselves in a position to fail. And this is precisely what Lot has done here in positioning himself among rapists as his normal. These are my bowling buddies. These are my friends, my brothers. This is not a good situation. Does this kind of friendship help him at all in his walk with God? Or does it lead him astray? Well, take a look. Lot begs his friends not to rape these men. Don't do this wicked thing. Well, that's good, right? That's good, right? Lot is standing up for good, and he's encouraging his brothers not to rape people. That's a good thing. right? Well, yes, but notice what he offers the rapists instead of these two men. He says, look, I have 2 daughters. Well, dude, what? What are you talking about, right? Well, Lot here has become so twisted in his sense of right and wrong. He gets the don't rape my house guest part right? That's good. But instead, he offers to let them rape his daughters. I mean, you can't get a much clearer picture of how much you end up being impacted by the type of people you hang out with as we have here. Lot clearly has had his sense of right and wrong massively skewed by his friends here. It's bad. But it gets even worse. As Lot adds one more piece to the deal he's offering the rapists, he says, don't rape these men. Instead, rape my daughters who have never slept with a man. That's horrible. I mean, rape is rape. Whether they are virgins or otherwise doesn't make it better or worse. It's all horribly, horribly wrong. But in Lot's mind, think with me, in Lot's mind, he's bought into the whole take her virginity thing as being something that he thinks will be attractive to them, so he offers it to them. His daughter's virginity. like Lot has clearly gone off the deep end as to his sense of right and wrong. Let me bring them out to you, he says, and you can do with them what you like. What? But don't do anything to these men, he said, for they have come under the protection of my roof. There you go. I mean, there it is, right? There it is. You see it? Lot has taken this cultural norm of hospitality to guests, offering them food and shelter and protection as they travel through the area and stop at your house and so forth. Like, nothing wrong necessarily with all of that. But he's taken that cultural norm and he's elevated it above just basic stuff that God has said, basic commands from God. So rather than protecting his family, he's moved them into a town full of rapists and then quite literally offers to give his daughters to them. It's a crazy scene. And Lot's sinful choices made over time are now starting to bear very visible fruit. Rotten, disgusting fruit, but fruit nonetheless. But there's these rapists, and they want nothing to do with girls, as they aren't into girls as much as they are guys, apparently. So they respond, get out of our way. They respond. This fellow came here as a foreigner, and now he wants to play judge. We'll treat you worse than them. Crazy, isn't it? Like, Lot calls them his brothers, but they're like, this fellow. Interesting to see their treatment of him versus the way he's speaking of them. It's interesting. This fellow. And they definitely take his anti-rape stance as being judgmental. Did you notice that? They take his anti-rape stance as being judgmental. It's kind of interesting, isn't it? It's a very 2025 entering into 2026 way of thinking, isn't it? Like, when you say no to pretty much anything today, people immediately call you judgmental. Notice that? Notice that? You say, no, that's wrong. Immediately, there's judgment on that. There's judgment on it immediately. Yeah, here we are just 19 chapters past the creation of the world, and already we have people calling you judgmental if you say no to rape. Yeah, it's a pretty interesting, wild situation here, how contemporary the Bible is when you begin to read it and see what all it says. But yeah, they start physically then pressing in on Lot. But the men inside reached out and pulled Lot back into the house and shut the door. Then they struck the men who were at the door of the house, young and old, with blindness, so that they could not find the door. The 2 men said to Lot, do you have anyone else here, sons-in-law, sons or daughters, or anyone else in the city who belongs to you? If so, get them here, because we are going to destroy this place. The outcry of the Lord against its people is so great that he has sent us to be able to destroy it. And here it is again, this outcry of people praying and so forth concerning what's happening here. And God responding, sending these angels to punish this city that's full of rape is normal and fine type of people. So Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law who were pledged to marry his daughters. What? I mean, if you were here with us for our Christmas series, you just saw us have this whole conversation on pledged to be married and so forth. We just talked about all of that stuff. So not only here is Lot offering up his daughters who are virgins, but they're also already legally married. Like, my man Lot here is seriously messed up in the head, offering them up like this. And then there's these sons-in-laws. Like, where were they when this rape attempt is unfolding? Where are they? Apparently, they were just outside the door. Apparently, they were very much a part of this gang rape attempt. They apparently not only participated in the rape attempt, but they also remained silent when Lot offered up their wives to the crowd. The whole thing's very messed up. I mean, there's just layers and layers of wrong, sick, sinful stuff that's going on here. It's hard to overstate it all. It's a complete mess of a situation. Things in this town were bad, like really, really bad, which is, of course, why people were praying to God concerning it and why God sent angels to destroy the place. So, yeah, Lot, he goes and he talks to his sons-in-law. He said, hurry and get out of this place. Get out of this place because the Lord is about to destroy the city. And their response to this warning that God's going to do something, what's their response? They laugh. They think he's joking. Think with me about this. It seems here that Lot hasn't been talking much on spiritual things with his sons-in-laws. It seems his daughters were all marrying unbelievers, and Lot had apparently gone along with all of that as well. So Lot here ends up seeing his daughters' husbands get wiped out because the city's about to get wiped out. And they don't believe him concerning God, and they get wiped out by the angels here in a minute. So his daughters lose their husbands here, and we see that in a moment. It says this next, when the coming of dawn, the angels urged Lot, saying, hurry, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, or you will be swept away when the city is punished. When he hesitated, right? Dude, like, what? We're hesitating? Like, well, you know what's coming down here. What are you doing? He hesitated. He hesitated leaving this place? Yep, he hesitated leaving that place. When he hesitated, the men grasped his hands and the hands of his wife and his 2 daughters. And man, I could totally picture this. Like, this is probably why God sent 2 angels. You ever think about that? It's probably why God sent 2 angels in the first place. Like, one angel has plenty of power to wipe this place out. Not a problem. Not a problem. Little pinky, city gone. Easy for an angel to be able to do. Has that much power. So why did God have to send 2 angels? I don't know. It's just speculation. But we need 2 angels to have enough hands to get all these people and to grab them. And that's what they do. So these angels led them safely out of the city. The angels led them safely out of the city, grabbed them by hand, and led them out of the city. For the Lord was merciful to them. And if ever there was an understatement in the Bible, here it is. God has been so merciful here to Lot. Lot has made bad decision after bad decision after bad decision, leading to ever increasing levels of darkness to where he's thinking rapists are brothers and daughters' virginity is a bargaining chip. I mean, Lot here has shown absolutely zero evidence as to some sort of godly character, any sort of holiness, any sort of anything that we would normally think of as, that's what moves God's heart and whatever. None of that in Lot. We see none of that evidence there. There's nothing there. And neither in his wife, apparently, as she's gone along with all this, as has his daughters, as they've actually gotten married to guys from that city, guys who were the type to participate in gang rapes. I mean, Lot, his entire family here, is in need of some desperate help, and yet not in any way deserving of it. But God still shows them mercy. He still shows them mercy. Like, this is incredible to be able to see. Mercy. As soon as the angels, had brought them out, one of them said, flee for your lives and don't look back. Don't stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the mountains or you will be swept away. And you notice first the flees, right? Flee for your lives. Flee to the mountains. And then you notice the don'ts. And don't look back. Don't stop. Simple, direct commands. Don't stop. Do not look back. And what would be the result if they did stop? What would be the result if they did look back? They too will be destroyed along with the people of that wicked city. Lot's response, Lot said to them, no, my lords, please, no, my lords. Like, dude, what are you doing here, right? You're in no position to ask favors, but Lot presses on. Your servant has found favor in your eyes. Dude, read the room. No, you're misreading this entirely, right? You have shown great kindness to me in sparing my life. Well, that part's definitely true. But I can't flee to the mountains, he says, lest this disaster will overtake me and I will die. And you look at this and like, Lot, what are you talking about, man? What are you talking about? Like, God's being super generous here, protecting you from all your own sinful choices, and yet you don't think God can protect you in the very place he's commanded you to go. Think. God says, go here. And Lot's like, oh, no, if I go there, all this is going to catch up with me. The same God that's rescuing you from this place can certainly protect you over here. What's the logic, Lot? What are you thinking? Like, Lot's mind is completely scrambled, so much so with sin that he presses on with this twisted logic. He says, look, here's a town near enough to be able to run to. It's small. It's small. It's a small little place over here. It's small. Let me flee to that. It's very small. Very small, isn't it? Very small. Yeah, we got it, Lot. It's small. Thank you for repeating this. Got it. Lot's like, oh, everything's good there. What trouble can I get into there, right? I mean, if I'm able to get there, to that small town, if I'm able to get there, then my life will be spared. Yeah, God can't protect you where he tells you to go, but if you're in a small town, you'll be safe. Okay, I got the logic, Lot. I think I'm tracking with you. It's a little messed up, but I think I'm tracking with you. And I got to tell you, right? Like if I'm God, which I'm not, praise the Lord, right? But if I were God, I got to tell you, this would be the exact moment that my mercy would run out. Would be right here. This would be the moment. Like, what's this small town nonsense that you're saying, Lot? Like, after all that I've done for you. You undeserving, rape-loving, daughter-hating, God-forsaken little snot. The snot gets the zot in my world. Like, that's it. He's done, right? If I'm God, that's the way that happens. Thankfully, I'm not God. God instead directs an angel to continue to extend mercy. The angel responds very well. I will grant this request too, and I will not overthrow the town that you're speaking of, but flee there quickly, because I cannot do anything until you reach it. That is why the town is called Zor. The Zor just simply means little or insignificant, which is what Lot was saying. Send me to that small, insignificant place. But notice with me here what the angel says about the angel's abilities. The angel says that though it is a powerful creature in its capabilities, it's still limited, restrained by God himself. The angel cannot just do whatever it wants to do. God has restrained him or contained him, you might say. Just as God did with the fallen angel Satan. Some of us are aware of the situation with Job and the whole conversation there, and we see similar with the fallen angel Satan being restrained there in his abilities, and we see that kind of thing happening here. It's kind of interesting. As God alone is God, not angels. He has that power, they do not. By the time Lot reached Zor, the sun had risen over the land. Then the Lord rained down burning sulfur on Sodom and Gomorrah from the Lord out of the heavens. Thus he overthrew those cities and the entire plain, destroying all those living in the cities and also the vegetation in the land. And that's it, right? That's the end. Like, Lot and his family have been rescued, even though they don't deserve it. God still rescues them, and that's it, right? Wrong. We'd actually discover in the next verse the final result of Lot's long string of sinful choices. Remember, Abraham had given him an option as to where to live, and Lot had chosen to live just outside of Sodom. Lot chose to snuggle up as close as possible to sin there, eventually moved into the city itself, eventually becoming brothers with rapists, gang rapists, getting gang rapists for son-in-laws, on and on it goes. It's all bad. And now Lot has lost absolutely everything, like the whole town, all his possessions, everything destroyed when God took out Sodom and Gomorrah, right? He lost everything. The only thing he has left is his family. But there's one final consequence for Lot. It says next, but Lot's wife looked back. Oops. We remember what God said about not looking back, right? But she looks back. She did exactly what God had said not to do. God is going this way, she's going that way, kind of a deal. Lot's wife is living out the very values of the culture that she was living in. God says, and I don't care. You do you, I'll do me, that kind of deal. And she just presses on with that. And that's her fault. That's her choice. And the consequence of that choice, she became a pillar of salt. God wiped her out, turned her into a pillar of salt. That was her consequence as a result of her disobedience to God. But it was also, in a way, a consequence for Lot. He just lost his wife as a direct consequence of bringing her to Sodom. He offered up his daughters to that city, but in the end, ended up giving his wife to that city. This is a very tragic, sad ending to this whole situation. And there's one more part of it that I want us to make sure that we're able to see this morning. But first, let's finish out quick here the little section. It concludes this way. Early the next morning, Abraham got up and returned to the place where he had stood before the Lord, where he had bargained with God. 45 people, 40, 30, that whole conversation, right? So Abraham is standing where he had done the bargaining with God, and he looks down towards Sodom and Gomorrah, towards all the land of the plain, and he saw dense smoke rising from the land like smoke from a furnace. So Abraham sees God destroy the city for its sinfulness. But he also saw God act in mercy. And he acts in mercy not because of Lot's deservedness, but incredibly, he did this for Abraham. He rescues Lot for Abraham. Abraham was clearly trying to intercede on Lot's behalf, to which some of us might go, where do you see that, Pastor Mark? Where's that in the Bible? Well, take a look at the next verse. Next verse says, so when God destroyed the cities of the plain, he remembered Abraham. He remembered Abraham. That whole conversation back there with Abraham. He remembered all that, and he brought Lot out. He brought Lot out of the catastrophe that overthrew the cities where Lot had lived. What an incredible thing to be able to see here. Here, just 19 chapters into the Bible, God responding to prayer. Prayer for both the justice done against the wicked of Sodom's rape culture, while also responding to prayer for mercy for those like Lot. It kind of makes the head spin to start to think some of that through. How can God be so merciful while also meting out justice? And of course, here in this specific instance with Lot, we're talking about Abraham and everything we looked at in the last series we just finished up, and how a great nation would come through Abraham and through his descendants, the Messiah, and all that. So God was doing specific things here in and through Abraham and for Abraham. So this whole mercy given to undeserving Lot thing is kind of interesting. It's kind of an interesting thing to see play out here in Genesis 19. There's almost a tension to the situation. There's almost a tension there. A tension, I believe, that is intended to make us look at our own sinfulness and look at our own undeservedness. Like if someone doesn't enter and intercede on our behalf, we're in trouble, just like Lot was. All of us in our own ways are Lot. All of us are. All of us have snuggled up way too closely to sin and to the endorsers and promoters of it. All of us deserve the fire, and yet God offers us mercy. And then he extends to us grace. Praise God for that. So we could end right there in praise for God's mercy, and that would be great. But I think setting here on the threshold of a new year, just days away from 2026, I think it'd be helpful for us to spend just a moment pondering something that Jesus said. Actually, last week we talked about some of the women that showed up in the genealogy of Jesus and how rare in those genealogies it is to be able to see women show up. And so just that fact alone made that stand out to us. Well, Jesus himself directed our attention really to only one woman in the Bible. And by that I mean Jesus only ever gave us one command concerning remembering a woman. He only commanded us to remember one woman. Who's that? Well, from different denominations, you might assume that would be Mary, the mother of Jesus. Remember her, worship her, so forth. No, that's not it at all. No, in Luke chapter 17, Jesus says, remember Lot's wife. That's what he says to remember. Remember Lot's wife. Oh, that's pretty interesting, isn't it? She not only, in the story here in Genesis, she only gets a quick mention, really, in the entirety of what we looked at this morning, right? And yet Jesus says, remember her, and he points to her, making sure that we pause to be able to get the lesson that she teaches us. So what's the lesson? Well, let's take a quick look at what that lesson might be back in chapter 19, verse 26. It says, but Lot's wife looked back, and she became a pillar of salt. That word looked in the Hebrew. That word means considered or looking intently at, gazing, a deliberate, discerning gaze, like intentionally looking at, and in a way that exposes pleasure and favor, care, and respect. Like I'm looking with pleasure, like I care about this, longing for, I have respect for, all those kinds of things. That's the word. So think with me about everything that we've looked at together this morning. Lot led his family into a situation where they were as a family just saturated in sin. They were just drenched in it. It was all around them. So saturated that Lot himself became so twisted in his mind that he was offering up his daughter to rapists. But not only did he get twisted up, his wife did too. His wife did too. And in the end, she came to the point where she was looking back longingly on all that she enjoyed in Sodom. She looked at Sodom with respect, desirous of what she had there. What? I think for some of us this morning, maybe we need to do some soul searching as to what we find pleasure in and match that up against what God has said, his direct commands and so forth, as to what is true and beautiful, what is good and holy and pleasing to him. So there's that whole train of thought, really. And for some of us, that's probably exactly what we need to take away from all this morning, especially if we're husbands and dads leading our families. Our wives have to make their own decisions and experience the consequences of those decisions like Lot's wife did here. But as husbands and fathers, we aren't uninvolved in those decisions. We lead. And we make decisions to put our families either in positions to make right decisions easy, or we put them into positions that make right decisions really, really hard. I think that's something as husbands and dads that we need to think about. But outside of all that, there's also a simple New Year's message for us here as well. And that is this, that for all of us, there are probably some things that we really need to leave in 2025. Some things we just need to leave in Sodom. We just need to leave those things behind and get out of it. Get out of 2025. That might be a sinful relationship of some kind. I could define all kinds of things along those lines, but if this is speaking to you, it speaks to you. I don't need to explain it. Some of us have some situations we need to leave in 2025. We've made wrong decision after wrong decision after wrong decision leading us here. God doesn't want us here. Angels by the hand trying to lead us out. Leave. Leave that sinful relationship in 2025. Maybe it's a sinful habit of some kind. Something we've gotten ourselves involved in, and this has become our norm, and we know it's wrong. We need to leave Sodom. We need to leave that in 2025. Maybe there's a sin of omission habit, something we know flat out God has called us to do, and we continually reject it. No, I know what God has said. No, and there's this sin of omission, and it's become our habit, lifestyle-like. We know what God has said. We're snubbing the whole thing. We're not doing it. We need to leave that in 2025 and bring some things afresh into 2026. On and on we could go. For way too many of us, we are Lot's wife. We make moves towards God. Maybe an angel or two is dragging us, but we're walking. we're moving along a good direction. Angels dragging us by our hands, but we're moving. But we keep looking back. We keep longing for all those things that are actually hurting us. Hurting us not just in our relationship with God, but they're also just plain bad for us. They're plain bad for us and for those around us, our families and so forth. So as we step into 2026, what do you need to leave behind in 2025? What sin do you need to leave behind and not look back on? I want to actually pause here for a minute, and we're gonna go to prayer. Actually, stand with me if you would, and we're gonna close in prayer. But I'm just gonna give you a moment to be able to take some time to pray yourselves. So you can go ahead and bow your heads, close your eyes, and let me pause for just a moment. I want to give all of us an opportunity to think and then to be able to pray and ask God to be able to reveal to you, what do I need to leave behind in 2025? And then ask God for help in leaving it behind. I'll close in prayer here in a moment, but let me give you a minute to talk to God on this first. God, I recognize that all of us are Lot sometimes. All of us at times have made very stupid, sinful choices. that lead us into situations that we would never intend to be in. Like, we didn't choose this, and yet we ended up here by our making of just one bad decision, followed by just one more bad decision, followed by yet another, and on it goes until we end up in Sodom. Our hearts and minds now twisted by that which has become our normal, as it's just the culture that we're living in, so we're numb to it. So God, I pray that for each of us here this morning, and that you would do this angel thing for us, that when we come, that you would come rather and rescue us, and that when we would pause, God, I ask that your angels would grab our hands, so to speak, and drag us out of there. God, do that for me when I'm stuck in Sodom. Take my hand, lead me out. Help me to be able to see and experience once again the joy of my salvation, the joy and beauty of holiness, the good that is you, that I might leave behind in 2025 all that would hold me back from you and from your calling on my life here heading into 2026. In Jesus' name and for Jesus' glory in these days, we pray these things. Amen.